So the United Kingdom is in a rather hilarious situation, actually. From a consumer point of view, you have the feeling you have a very competitive landscape in terms of operators you can choose. Now, when it comes to the networking side, things look actually very different, because those who are skilled in the arts, you will know that O2 and Vodafone have a joint venture on RAN sharing. EE and 3 have the very same thing and a little bit deeper into the network. And with the latest acquisitions of 3 buying O2 and BT buying EE, we ended up essentially with a single operator in the United Kingdom, right? So if one piece of equipment goes down, and if you draw the Venn diagram and that particular part of the network goes down, everybody will suffer. Now, is that a surprise? Actually not. So those skilled in economic theory will know about the concept of economic returns, and they will know that under perfectly competitive type of market conditions, you will end up in a situation with absolutely no economic return, if not a negative one. Okay, so I don't think everybody is here in economics, so let me explain that very, very quickly. Imagine you have $100 to invest somewhere. You put the $100 in option A, and you got $110 back, so you made revenue, you get some money back. Or you have option B, and you get $150 back, okay? So your economic loss is $40. Even though you made gains on both, you could have actually used your money much better somewhere else, right? So the question is now, for an operator, you know, why should I be in this really highly competitive type of environment if in reality I could probably use that cash and do much more with that money and get much more for my shareholders, right? So we're in a situation which we understand pretty well. Of course, Ofcom will jump in. The regulators always try to keep that, you know, kind of really separate. We'll see how this game plays out. But from an economic point of view, there's no surprise whatsoever, and that will play out in every single country on this planet, the UK being probably the first one where this has become really, really visible, that problem, right? So the question is, you know, we are here at a point which looks a little bit like an economic stagnation, which comes with an innovation stagnation. Can we do better? Can we come up with something which allows us to innovate in this space to see how we can keep ahead of the curve and essentially get that real innovation drive going? And some of you know that I run a company called World Sensing. We're doing pretty well, and I had a lot of mentors on the way, some of them pretty well known. And the message of all these mentors was very simple, Mischa. Stay focused, meaning, you know, be efficient and be effective. Okay, that's very important. So we stuck to that motto. I stuck it in my personal life and my professional life, etc. Be effective, be efficient. Be effective means do the right thing, and be efficient meaning do the things right. Okay, so I want to examine now a little bit the mobile scenario from both. Right? Are we doing the right thing, and are we doing the things right? Now, some of that, what I'll bring up is what I believe will happen. Other stuff, I'm not so convinced. I just put it on the table. I don't want to burn bridges. I think the event today is really there to make us think of how things may work out differently. So please come back after that presentation with comments, etc. Feel free to shoot me, but please be kind. All right, so on the effectiveness, right? Are we doing the right things? Okay, so I'm not sure what type of ecosystem you're embedded at, but you know, in London, I get a lot of people who are not in the cellular world, and they ask me consistently the same question: Mischa, why are download rates so lousy over cellular? Right? And I'm like surprised, hey, we give you megabytes. Yes, but we have, you know, gigabytes at home. What's happening on the wireless edge, right? And you sit down and you think of, okay, yeah, something might be wrong here. And actually, when I'm sitting in my office in London and I'm trying to make a phone call, I fail probably 80% of the time. I get a dropped call, I have voice quality problems, and I actually do have quite a good coverage there, right? So we have a real congestion problem here. Whilst if I do a Skype call with video, I can go for 1 hour, right? So you tell me who gives me here the better quality of service for what I want as a consumer to actually communicate with somebody else on the other end of the planet. Now, we sat down quite a while ago, and that happened, I believe, VTC 2009. I but based on these type of discussions, I chaired a panel, Is the Physical Layer Dead? So some of you were in the audience, actually, and some of you probably read the magazine paper which came out of that. And something we realized very quickly is over the years, we had about a 1,000,000-fold capacity increase. And the question we wanted to figure out, the millions of engineering hours we spend on the physical layer, is that really money well spent? And we figured out that actually the physical layer has contributed only a factor of 5 to the overall million capacity increase. Spectrum, a factor of 25, and smaller cells, a whooping factor of 1,900, okay? So you realize that if there's something which is really contributing to capacity in the cellular world, it's the smaller cells, the rollout essentially, bringing fibers to the base stations, etc. And then you look at the whole ecosystem, the whole cellular ecosystem, and you try to think, what is holding back this extraordinary quick deployment of edge points? And you will figure out it's actually the core network. Okay, so the core network is a very curious type of instantiation of engineering, and I dug a little bit in the history of that, and found what I suspected I would find. So it turns out we have a core network in 4G because we had a core network in 3G. And we had a core network in 3G because we had one in 2G. And we had one at 2G because nobody believed back then that the internet could deliver the type of quality that we wanted for the cellular stuff, right? So that's why we're stuck with the core network for all these decades. Now, the core network has done a great job. It's good stuff, it's good engineering, it's fantastic. It offers us probably some of the functionalities which really made cellular, which is mobility support, handover management, roaming capabilities. It offers, you know, a lot of quality of service type of stuff, except when I can't get my call set up, right, in London. But it offers something which is very interesting, which is kind of the ability to do authentication and billing, etc. The question is, do we all need that? These functionalities, so AAA functionalities, mobility management functionalities, and you know, the other type of stuff you're doing, handover, etc., roaming. Do we really need this in the core as we have it? Couldn't we just get rid of it altogether? And we actually have heard notions of that already, and I'm not quite sure we're speaking the same language here. When I say getting rid of the core network, it means put everything to the edge, okay? Virtualize everything, it's great, I love that. Get rid of your proprietary networks to the packet gateway and the serving gateway. Please put IPsec on the edge for a long list of reasons, which I don't want to get into details today, just to make sure that we can do what we want to do in 5G. From a technical point of view, to get millisecond delays, extraordinary high reliability, the core network is the biggest challenger here, right? So why don't we just get rid of it? Just following my mentoring advice, something which is actually holding back your biggest opportunity. Don't try to make it better. Just get rid of it. Ignore it. Weaknesses, forget about them, right? Don't focus on weaknesses. So if I had an engineering choice, I would love to see how that will play out. And indeed, I have a few researchers in my center looking at how is life without core, putting mobility management actually right in the edge and in the mobile terminal, because the mobile terminals today know so much more about where I'm going, what I'm doing, than the serving gateway, where a lot of these handover decisions are taken. It's kind of silly to have the decision there, right? So, so here we go, right? So I'll leave that with you for a moment, live without core. You will become so much leaner and more scalable. Now, what's the strength of cellular? If you look at it, loads of strengths. I gave you some of them, like the mobility control, handover, roaming, etc. But if I had to put up number one strength of the cellular network today, it's the ability to recurrently build the edge. IEEE hasn't managed. Nobody else has managed it. It's only the 3GPP community which has managed to consistently, on a monthly basis, build the wireless edge. Now that's an enormous strength. And it's kind of really strange that you have another wireless edge here, which is very dominant on this planet, which is Wi-Fi. And we just had a question here, and the gentleman from Deutsche Telekom, such a professional in building people on the 3GPP edge, wouldn't know how to build them actually on the more interesting edge, right? So there's an opportunity here. This opportunity has been around all the time, and there will be you know, evolutions of Wi-Fi, even though we call one thing Wi-Fi now, in reality, IEEE has always been very good in reinventing new systems. So .11 AD is coming, the gigahertz systems. Who will build them? Wouldn't it be great if I had a functionality in 3GPP which would natively allow me to build all these incumbent as well as emergent systems and really build a very strong business case around it? That comes really nicely together, getting rid of the core. You get rid of one thing, right? You let it now to a wider kind of community, the IEEE community, 3GPP, or other communities, whoever will be there, coming up with really fascinating wireless edges. What you concentrate on is to build them consistently. Give control capability. Let's push that a little bit further. 3GPP is great in coverage. So we have literally, wherever you go on this planet, there's a fantastic coverage, right? So we have that. Why don't we use that system as a glue? Okay, in terms of capacity, it always seems to lag behind by an order of magnitude beyond the Wi-Fi capabilities. And it will always be like this. So Gerhard Fettwei's slide, you will probably see it tomorrow. You always see 3GPP technology going that way, Wi-Fi just being exactly a factor 10 above it over the years. Okay, so 10% is what 3GPP delivers versus other the systems on the wireless edge. 10% is what typically makes up a good control channel. So why don't we focus this community just to do one thing, forget about consumers, okay? Let's just not do B2C, let's do B2B. Let's just be the glue for everybody here on this planet. All these IEEE systems, the other type of systems coming out, and actually offer maybe data and voice quality just in cases where you don't have this type of coverage by the other technologies. Wi-Fi calling is coming. If you had the capability of properly building that and you had factored this into 3GPP architecture maybe 10 years ago, we would have been in a totally different place. So there's a good point maybe to rethink that, okay? Rethink the whole way how we handle 3GPP, how this plays out. You still with me, yeah? All right, let's come to the, are we doing it right? That's a big question, right? Are we doing the way, how we do things the right way? Number one is maybe, hey, why don't we get rid of the Gs? Why don't we make 5G the last G, okay? And in fact, there were only two communities left which were going with the generation salad. That was the cellular community and Microsoft. Microsoft last week announced they would stop doing generations, okay? So now we are the only community left doing G stuff. Just to balance that, I think G is great for me as an academic, because every 10 years I can kind of re-excite, you know, the government, the industries to give me some cash to do some research. So it's a good thing. But if you think it from a scalability point of view, how you roll out services, this is not a lean way of doing things, okay? It's really not a lean way of doing it. It takes us always 10 years to do that, always, no matter how hard we try. And it's very obvious why, because everybody has to agree. Everybody on this table, antennas, you know, handset, eNode B, packet gateway, serving gateway, billing, etc., 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 etc. Do you see Microsoft, Cisco, Facebook sitting together every 10 years to come up with the next internet? You don't. Right? It's all kind of really carved out. Everybody innovates and scales in their own place, whereas we are still running around with this really huge system. The big question is, can we do better and actually scale things? And my feeling is if we get rid of this G thing, break things up a little bit, yes, we lose control. Maybe we lose control 50%, but we scale business by 500%, right? So you're going to make actually a lot of money on the long run. And that brings me to the next topic. You know, I think we really need to rethink how we do standardization. I brought this slide up about maybe half a year ago in front of a keynote, loads of telco operators. I really burned a lot of bridges on that day. And I was very depressed. And then I met the CTO of Etsy. And I shared my experience with him that what I just presented didn't really go down very well. And then he showed me his slides, and it turns out that actually a huge standards community has realized that while standards are a great thing, the way how it is operated is a great thing, so nobody doubts about it. But are there maybe ways, more agile ways to get things out? So Adrian is now proposing ways of actually doing maybe a crowdsourced type of standard, which goes much quicker. Open it up, the standardization process. Build it maybe a lot on, you know, type of API type of standardization. So moving from a more like a big thing, which you kind of shift from 10 years to 10 years, to something which is like the Pandora world, right? Something small, everybody can innovate on their own world, which looks so much more like the internet, which scales with all its capabilities. Wouldn't it be great to have the same amount of startups in internet as in telecom as in internet? How many telco incubators do you know? Well, you're a bit skewed here in Sweden because you have a very strong ecosystem. So if we cut out, Sweden out of the world map, how many incubators do you know in telecom? I basically, it's virtually zero. You'll say, yeah, it's a very regulated world. Look, I'm in London, I'm exposed a lot to the financial world, a lot to the biotech world, and I can tell you, if you think you're regulated, they are really regulated. And I know of 10 times more startups in these worlds than in the telco world, right? So we need to kind of get used to this idea that maybe putting innovation on top within etc. gets this community scale so much quicker, allowing me to have downloads of terabits per second in 2020 rather than maybe gigabits per second. So I think standards play an instrumental role, and there's a way to rethink that maybe. And then, flip business models. All the big transformations have really happened because somebody has been very daring. Apple kind of killed Nokia overnight, just simply because they said, let's flip the whole thing. As a matter of fact, for history, against the will of Steve Jobs, actually. But it happened, and it worked out really well, the whole App Store type of ecosystem. So a lot of opportunities. So if you think that 5G will be very B2B driven, loads of vertical industries, why don't you use these industries to roll out the network? Maybe give, the network to everybody else for free and get that money rather from the Skanskas, from the Rolls-Royce, etc., which seem to have a very strong drive of using 5G technology. So there are loads of ways of doing it. Capitalize on the data, and there's a lot of value there rather than on the pipes. We've tried a few times, and I worked in France Telecom for quite a few years. As a company, we have tried to do that transformation. We never managed because you have always the same people kind of doing the decisions. But there's an opportunity in 5G maybe to make this more open, right? And that naturally will maybe stimulate these type of transitions, right? So I'll leave you with that, really. If you want to discuss that further, please come to my offices in downtown London. Thank you very much.
Okay. I think you managed to provoke a few.
No burning bridges, please, okay?
Comments or questions? Franz?
That was an obvious one. Don't think we speak different languages. If you remember, I said it's and I struggle a lot to still talk about the core network in 5G areas because I fully agree, it looks very different to what we did or what we used to call a core network in the past. So pretty much with you, with the ideas you're
good to know. Yeah,
doing here.
Good, thanks.
Gunnar?
You don't touch upon spectrum being a commons. With this approach of seeing Wi-Fi as being the data channel and the cellular being control channel, shouldn't basically all spectrum be license free?
Not really. And I give you a very good example, and unfortunately the regulator gentleman has left, I think. I run a company which does a lot of instrumentation, and we work in the oil and gas business. And if you start having only unlicensed spectrum and something goes wrong because a packet was not delivered and the refinery blows up, I go to prison, okay? Whereas if you have a regulated type of control channel environment, I have somebody to go to and to blame, who themselves maybe go on to an insurance company, but most likely with them it wouldn't happen because it's kind of regulated. It's a very regulated and controlled environment. No, I'm a big fan of the regulated spectrum, but rather than using it for the kind of really high volume traffic and build a whole system around it, why don't we build it around control? Have IEEE and other communities capitalize on the huge spectrum, which they're very good at, actually, right? So if you look at it, I don't understand the politics behind it, but the IEEE.11 type of community gets so much more spectrum, so much easier than anybody else. So it seems like let them do the capacity thing, and you get the bucks, which you're really good at, yeah? From a business point of view, That's it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I must ask you this question. I mean, I really sympathize with you on the new operator role of being the one that provides the glue and let somebody else provide the capacity. I think the selling point for the operator will be to say that I provide you, I guarantee you connectivity, but I not necessarily provide you all the capacity at all times physically. So I really sympathize with you on that. But when it comes to standardization issue, we had started this discussion a little bit yesterday, but standardization is, some people believe, naive people believe that standardization is for the good of society, but actually it's a club for those involved to protect their inventions. So if you have a club, I mean, it's like Groucho Marx. If a club where anyone can be a member, I don't want to be a member of it. Or if the club that accepts me as a member, I don't want to be a part of that club. So if you open up, that's sort of somewhat contradictory to the notion of standardization as we see it today. Can you comment a little bit on that sort of tension?
So let me explain you what I think Adrian is doing. So rather than philosophizing, I just give the example of Etsy. So the idea is really to say, okay, we have a problem here in that area. Etsy is working a lot with black boxes and API type of thing, right? So that's a problem we have here. That's an API, a kind of an interface to another block box we have. And I tell you exactly how this API looks like, and you tell me what do I need to put inside, or the other way around, right? So, and everybody can put in suggestions, can run it via software, can do it in real thing, and you get maybe 10,000 really clever people around the globe giving you suggestion, and you pick one which is good. And then in fact this is very good for you as a business, because you kind of always get the best solution which currently the humanity has cooked up with. Whereas if you keep it in a closed environment, you're stuck to your kind of own ecosystem, right? So we all understand the openness has really brought this humanity out of the cave. So I think we should stick to these principles. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you've been if you've been into 5G or 3GPP or any Etsy or anything like that, it still comes down to a vote, and then probably the third best solution wins, because that's the one that the majority of the players want, because it protects their business model or highlights the technology they're really good at, rather than what it would be sort of from a technical perspective the best.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's not that I'm married to the thought I really want to push for that. So it's rather for you, really. So it's not my world at all. But I feel that if we do things every 10 years, will take quite a while to get things really out and rolling. And I think there will be a huge earthquake. I mean, a huge earthquake is happening. What Google did is, I think operators need to be very, very careful, and particularly the edge billing capability. If I had an engineering team now, this is where I would focus now all my efforts, because there's a real danger that Google probably will never end up of being an operator, but the ISPs. How far are we away from an ISP being really an operator and getting the rest of the coverage through a virtual network? Very, very close, very close. And that would be extraordinary bad news for the Vodafones, Deutsche Telecoms, etc., unless you control exactly the way how you build these edges. And then you're the king of the party. No infrastructure, just the virtual billing capabilities, right?
Yeah. I don't get me wrong about the openness. I think openness for innovation. I mean, Eric mentioned this as well. I mean, this is the key driver. I mean, this is what will take us forward. So that is. But to get this into the standards community is a real challenge.
We'll take it time. Yes. Yeah.
Klaus.
I just want to comment on the thing that the fact that you said that you thought that open standards would be driving innovation more than closed standards. I can't tell for the world. So, but the experience we right now have, from Sweden, is that it's a lot of companies, and we just had a sort of gathering of 100 SME companies in our field, and most of them build on COTS. Components off the shelf. So their innovation is like on top of that, and then it's a very good thing for sort of all these companies that this they are not involved in a standardization, and that the standards are very stringent and clear and so on. So, and then of course lots of these companies are built by people who have a background in Ericsson. So then, so then they also know all the standards.
Yeah. So you tell me how to solve it, really. You know that place.
Yeah.
I just want to give you out that homework in a sense to think, to maybe not to accept these 10-year cycles. I mean, we've been, every generation we talk about it, but every generation we end up with 10 years. And maybe 3G was probably the generation we've designed longest and we used less. Okay, I've used 3G maybe 2 years. 2 years. And something we have, count the engineering hours we've done for that system, right? It's like cooking a meal for a whole week and then eating it in 5 minutes, right? Mm-hmm. So if you really love it, do it. But free market, not sure.
Okay, I think we wrap it up here. Thanks, Mischa.
Cheers,
He'll be back after lunch in the panel
panel
session,
okay.
so you have the chance to think something really clever out there. Okay.